This thin line of light, visible from space at night, is part of one of the most ambitious border security projects in the world. A fence stretching more than 4,000 kilometers, running through rivers, forests, villages, and one of the most densely populated regions on Earth. A barrier so large, parts of it are visible from space at night. And most people outside South Asia have never heard of it. So what is driving this? Who is it really aimed at? And why does a border fence between India and Bangladesh have China watching closely?
India and Bangladesh share one of the longest land borders in the world. Approximately 4,096 kilometers, cutting through the states of West Bengal, Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram. On both sides of this frontier live an estimated 30 million people, communities whose history, language, and family ties predate the modern border itself. The border was created in 1947 during the partition of British India, and again redefined in 1971 following Bangladesh's independence. For decades, the Indian government, through its border security force, has argued that parts of this frontier remain vulnerable to illegal crossings, to smuggling networks worth billions of dollars annually, and to security threats that New Delhi says cannot be ignored. So beginning in the 1980s, India began building a fence, section by section. Today, that project is still expanding.
From India's perspective, border infrastructure is fundamentally a security decision. Officials point to three primary concerns: illegal migration, organized smuggling, and infiltration by non-state actors. The cattle trade alone, much of it illegal, is estimated to move over $1 billion through this border annually, making it one of the largest underground economies in South Asia. India's border security force argues that fencing significantly improves surveillance and reduces criminal activity in the most vulnerable sections of the frontier. And this is not just historical policy. In May 2026, the newly elected BJP government in West Bengal announced it would transfer land to the BSF for expanded border fencing within 45 days. The message from New Delhi is consistent. This border requires modern infrastructure, and India is not waiting for diplomatic permission to build it. Communities on both sides of this border share centuries of history. The same language, the same rivers, often the same families, divided by a political boundary that was drawn in 1947. Critics argue that expanded fencing disrupts legitimate cross-border movement, affects agricultural trade, and damages the social fabric of border communities. Every year, roughly $14 billion in trade flows across this frontier, supporting businesses, jobs, and millions of families on both sides of the border. And politically, the relationship is under strain. In August 2024, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina fled Bangladesh following mass protests. The interim government, led by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, has signaled a more independent foreign policy direction. That means New Delhi can no longer assume Dhaka will quietly accept unilateral decisions about a shared frontier. Every fence post now carries diplomatic weight.
Because this border fence is not just about security. It is about one of the most strategically sensitive pieces of geography in all of Asia. Here, in the state of West Bengal, there is a narrow strip of land connecting the Indian mainland to 8 northeastern states. It is approximately 22 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. In military and strategic analysis, it is known as the Siliguri Corridor, or more bluntly, the chicken's neck. If that corridor were ever threatened, destabilized, or blocked, India would lose its land connection to Assam, Meghalaya, Manipur, Nagaland, and 4 other states. That is 50 million people cut off. Now, look at what is happening around that corridor. Bangladesh borders it directly to the south. China sits to its north through Bhutan and Tibet, and China has become Bangladesh's largest trading partner, with investments in Chittagong Port, power infrastructure, and major connectivity projects. When India looks at a Bangladesh that is diplomatically drifting away from New Delhi and economically closer to Beijing, it does not just see a border issue. Not because China is crossing this border, but because growing strategic influence can reshape the environment around it. From New Delhi's perspective, that creates risks around the most vulnerable point in India's entire national geography. The fence is not just a wall. It is India's answer to a strategic question it cannot afford to get wrong.
The India-Bangladesh border is not a regional story anymore. It is a story about geography, power, and the competition to control South Asia's strategic future. India sees a vulnerable corridor it must protect. Bangladesh sees a sovereignty it must defend. And China sees an opportunity it intends to use. 3 calculations, 1 border, and a fence that keeps getting longer. This is what geopolitics looks like when it is not on the front pages. The question I want to leave you with is this: is India's border strategy making South Asia more stable, or is it accelerating the regional competition it was designed to prevent? Drop your answer below. I read every comment.